It's time to mind your business with me, Jamillah Lodge. Tune in to find out how to mind your business with BEDC, special guest entrepreneurs, industry experts, and more. Brought to you by BEDC. Bermuda Business starts here. Welcome to Mind Your Business. I am Jamillah Lodge, your host, and you are Giles Belfrage.
Correct, yes.
Yes, and you are the owner of Accountancy Tamer.
That's right.
So we're going to talk a little bit about accounting and the importance of it for people who are starting businesses or who own businesses or managing businesses.
Yes.
But before we do that, I'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Giles Belfrage. I have a Bermudian mother.
Okay.
And when I was 20, they were concerned in England that I wasn't working at proper jobs. So they tackled my uncle, who owns a construction company, who brought me out here.
Okay.
And it took about 4 years to realize that I wasn't cut out for the construction site. And I was supposed to be, my destiny was chasing my boss with a piece of wood so he could write down on the wood who worked on particular jobs.
Okay.
And what materials he used so I could provide costing sheets.
I see.
At the same time, I was taking a computer course at Bermuda College, which I hated. Mm-hmm. And I went up there one night, to my delight, to discover an accounting course where I was getting full marks for everything.
Okay.
So I found my destiny.
I see that. I mean, for you, you had a natural affinity for it then, I would say.
Yeah. And I went and got the Canadian qualification.
Okay.
Did most of it at Bermuda College. And that was 27 years ago.
Oh, wow. So when you found your calling in accountancy,
right.
So did you start your business right away, or what was the transition to starting Accountancy Tamer?
No, I found a wonderful job at the Bank of Butterfield.
Okay.
Which was incredibly stressful. But I was a lonely bachelor and I worked many hours to get everything out. Mm-hmm. And that lasted until 2009 when they decided to cut back and sell part of the bank to new owners.
Okay.
So that led me to another bank which closed down one day with 107 people made redundant.
Oh, Lord.
So I ended up at Bermuda College teaching accounting courses,
okay,
working in the business office, and getting a degree in education. And I figured I needed the degree in education to train people.
Right, because it's a little different, right? Yeah. When you're doing your own thing versus having to educate people on how to do the thing, it is a little bit different.
Yes.
Okay.
So I ended up in a BEDC entrepreneurship course. This was after Bermuda College.
Yeah.
And some reason I thought I should be driving a taxi. And I
we all
knew
go through that, right? You're like,
I knew where everything was.
Yeah.
On the island.
Yeah.
But I kept hitting cones. So
Giles.
I literally sat in the BEDC entrepreneurship course one evening.
Yeah.
Texting to a lady offering her tuition, and she accepted while I was doing the BEDC course.
Okay.
So Accountancy Tamer was born in July 2019.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And the services have increased, the clients have increased. Mm-hmm. My confidence has increased.
Well, good.
Yeah.
So because you've had so much experience working for other people, and now you are essentially you're owning your own business and you're running your own business. What has the difference between the two been like? What has been the biggest difference for you?
The people I'm dealing with were mostly viewed me as a hero.
Okay.
Accountancy.
Now are they?
No, now.
Okay.
Well, now and when I started, because Accountancy Tamer was based on me taming the accountancy profession for the client.
Okay. I was going to ask you about that name because I think lion tamer, right, when I hear that name. So.
Yeah, well, accountancy is the lion.
I gotcha.
And many Bermudian students get turned off the idea of qualifying as an accountant, but it's not that difficult. You need to just commit yourself, or come and see me and throw me topics every Sunday afternoon. I'll explain them and you can practice them and then go and take your exams.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Or the QuickBooks training if you feel you're never going to grasp QuickBooks. Mm-hmm. Some people just choose not to use QuickBooks because they don't like it.
Right.
But most people could grasp it.
So tell me about the services that Accountancy Tamer provides. Like, what are your primary offerings?
This is the one I'm worried about forgetting. It's largely based on the client.
Okay.
One lady is thinks she can do her accounts perfectly, but she just forgets to do certain things each month.
Yeah.
So I come along and I do something called a reconciliation, where I tie in her work to the bank statements to QuickBooks, post any remaining entries, and then she sets up accounts on QuickBooks and does them wrong, so I can't run reports until I fix the accounts.
Right.
And apparently she's doing it accidentally, so that's good. Find out. So that's one service, finishing things off.
Yeah.
For people who have been around for many years and are technical enough to produce bank statements in Excel format, I can upload them to QuickBooks very quickly, and in one afternoon get all their accounts up to date.
Right.
There are people who put their private transactions in with their public transactions.
Of course they do. Of course they do. But that's part of it, right?
But the people are ashamed of themselves. Two people refuse to talk to me, but they've admitted that they've mixed all this stuff in, and I say it's not that big of a deal. Most of us do it.
I think there's a level of embarrassment a little bit that I found. You know, when you're speaking to people, because they feel like, okay, if I own this business, I should know this, but how accountancy came easy for you. Like it's easy for you to understand. It makes sense to you. Whereas someone else, let's say someone who's in construction, it's easy for them to build the thing, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to understanding the numbers. So everybody, I believe, has their strengths.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing, is to try and communicate that to the client. It's not, don't worry, trust me, everybody is there with you.
Yeah.
You know, it's not necessarily easy for everyone to understand.
Right.
That's why you have Accountancy Tamer. And
I tell these embarrassed people, don't be embarrassed.
Yeah.
I can't build construction equipment.
Exactly.
I don't go out selling shoes to people, and you can expect me to just weed out all your private transactions and we'll take them away.
Exactly. And then I think once they understand best practice, then maybe it becomes easier for you. They understand, okay, we need to keep it separate.
Right.
So in a scenario like that, is the situation because they have one account, one operating account, and that's how they get commingled?
I think it just happened when they started the business. They didn't bother to open a new bank account.
Right.
But when you've got banks that charge you for an idle account with nothing going on, you know, I don't blame them really in some aspects.
Right.
So they're just going to have to pick their own favorite bank that they get on best with and have two accounts instead of one.
Right. So that's my next question. What would you advise someone? So they're operating on this one account. What is your advice to them when they've started their business going forward to make your life easier and their life easier?
Yeah, and not only that, but it's their privacy. You know, I don't need to know what they're doing with their money in private.
Personally, yeah.
They're leaving a trail that they're paying themselves into their private accounts. So good old Office of the Tax Commissioner's got an audit trail if they choose to come along and look at it. So definitely split your accounts up, but definitely give them the media split up if you're busy creating something wonderful.
Right. Yeah. So, okay, you provide support with reconciliation, bookkeeping. What else do you do? Now, do you still do the education piece?
The education piece is QuickBooks.
Okay.
People who want to see how to operate it, and I can give them an hour's training on all the basic stuff.
Okay.
Or I can give them about 4 hours training on just about everything. And then see if they like it. Because I don't recommend spreadsheets. So you've really only got QuickBooks left to do your accounting.
Right.
Because you just literally pull out the reports that you want for the dates that you want. And if everything's posted correctly, it's all there.
So what is the alternative to QuickBooks and spreadsheets? Is there other software that can be utilized?
Yeah, Xero.
Okay, what's that?
Xero's out of Australia.
Okay.
The most fantastic thing about Xero is they will give you depreciation schedule for all your assets on one schedule. And probably the most fantastic thing about QuickBooks is the fact that it's difficult to break. I have seen people break it.
That's important. That is important, because you know we will break it if it's possible.
Yeah.
It will be broken.
It can be broken.
So you're saying QuickBooks is more resilient?
I think QuickBooks is more resilient and it's more user friendly.
Okay.
But Xero can be done as well.
Okay. Yeah. So if someone was interested, do they just, Xero.com or?
Xero.com for Xero.
Okay.
Intuit.com/Bermuda for QuickBooks.
Okay.
Excel spreadsheets, watch out, formulas can get mixed up, things can get corrupted. it's probably not a good idea.
Right.
But the best people seem to be the marketing gurus are the people who take to accounting.
Oh, yeah?
Because I was watching with interest.
Yeah.
And the marketing people can do it
pretty easily.
Yeah.
Or hire Accountancy Tamer or other accountant firms to help you with it.
Yes, exactly.
Those were you do the reconciliations, you do the education.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you specialize in?
Well, doing accounts from beginning to end. This poor distraught person who just started her business had no idea how she was doing, and she gave me the CSV bank statement files. I uploaded them, and I think it was about 2 days we had 1 year of figures. So she knew what she owned and what she owed, which is the balance sheet, and she knew how she was doing with her profits.
Okay.
And now we just carry on. Okay. Every month she gives me the updated figures, and I put them in as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that, because I think that is sometimes a challenge for business owners when they start up. They just get started and they just keep going. So they don't really take the time to put in proper processes to be able to take stock of how well they're doing, and sometimes in some instances they're not actually doing as well as they think. They see the sales, but maybe they're not paying attention to the expenses and the cost of making those sales. So what is your recommendation for people who are starting up? What should they do first?
They need rudimentary theory about everything. I've got one guy trained up to do his accounts receivable. So every time you render the service, you put in an invoice, send it to the client, and then I come along and say, right, has this client paid?
Right.
Same with the payables, because the payables run away as well. If you owe money to somebody and you forget to pay them.
Yes.
A small place like Bermuda, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yes.
So we put everything in like that. The concept of cash flow is right behind the income statement cash flow. They're talking about their profits. But you need the cash to pay the bills, and you need to collect the cash from the people.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the cash flow and maybe the income statement?
Yeah, the cash flow involves the cash.
Yes.
So how much cash does the client have? Here am I at the beginning of the month. I've got practically nothing except money to have lunch. So I'm eagerly awaiting people pay me for my services rendered.
That's right.
And then I go out and get my health insurance and stuff. And it's exactly the same if you're running a business, but you've got more stuff that you have to do.
Right.
And the payroll tax creeps up on you, and they write nasty letters saying you didn't pay, even when you did pay.
Yeah.
So it's very important to keep an eye that you've got enough cash to pay the immediate obligations, but you can talk to the people you owe money to and say, I'll have it in 2 weeks' time, and they like to be told that. And the people that owe you money, just keep an eye on them that they're going to pay, and if they're having difficulties, I say give them some leeway.
Right.
It's not very nice when you have difficulties, but if they're genuinely avoiding you for months on end, then you just have to go down to the magistrate's court and do a small claim.
Right, to make sure you get your money.
And then suddenly the client starts talking to you when you've done the small claim.
Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to get in trouble, but I think, like you said, if someone owes money or is having trouble paying, then sometimes they're like, okay, if I close my eyes and I think about it, it'll go away. We all know that that's not the case. Yeah. And sometimes it takes that little nudge to be like, hey, I provided this service. You owe me this money, so now you have to pay. And even if you are willing to put together a payment plan, I think that's fine. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. But you can't just close your eyes and act like it doesn't exist.
It won't go away.
Yeah. So from my standpoint and from the conversations I've had with people who start businesses, they're usually experts at whatever it is that they're doing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You started Accountancy Tamer because you're an expert at understanding the numbers, right?
Yeah.
And so the accounting part becomes scary or something that they dislike. So when it comes to you and working with your clients in a scenario like that, and then the other thing is with startup businesses, they're managing all of their dollars, right? So a lot of times they're like, well, I just can't afford to have this service.
Right.
So in your opinion, is it a worthwhile investment to get someone like yourself early
Definitely.
So you're like, when you're talking about cash flow, that item that's listed in terms of what you have to pay out every month,
Right.
What is your recommendation? Should they start early, or is there a time frame that they can wait before they have to put someone on the books?
No, start as soon as you've done your first transaction.
Okay.
So if it's your business and you've gone out and bought, I don't know, 15 crates,
Yeah.
that's going to be the first thing that goes in the accounts. It should go in straight away. It gives you time to understand as much or as little of accounting as you want. And the bit you don't want to be bothered with, you assign to the accountant. But if there's clear understanding all round, we've got time to explain things.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying from the start.
From immediately, yeah.
Yeah. And I would imagine that can save heartache and long hours in the long run.
And this business about expensive accountants.
Yeah.
Yeah, any poor accountant in the city of Hamilton is going to be paying rent.
Right.
My wife doesn't charge me rent. I live at home. I live downstairs in a quiet study.
Yeah.
I can swear. I can play loud music depending on my mood.
Yeah.
I get on with the job at 20 to 5 on a Saturday morning before anybody's up, if I feel so inclined.
Yeah.
So I'm a better deal because I don't have to pay the rent.
Right. So I guess what you're saying is there are ways. When you think of the larger firms and things like that to provide services, of course, they have the overhead, they have staff, they have all of this.
Yeah.
And you're saying Accountancy Tamer is primarily you.
Yeah.
And your wife is allowing you to live at home rent-free. So.
Well, we're married, so I hope so, yeah. She allows me to buy her lunch and pay the electricity bill as well.
That's your contribution.
Well, a few things, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I would definitely agree with you. I know, over the years, my 15th year anniversary is coming up at BDC. Can you believe that?
That's a long time.
It's a long time. I'm like, I've been here this long.
2008. Well, that's about the first time I met you. Was about right.
I think so. So, I'm saying that to say that I've seen a lot of businesses come and go, and one of the things that I can say quite frequently, a lot of the times, it's been the accounting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when they should tackle that. And I agree with you. It should be from the start, because if you have an understanding about what your costs of doing business are, then at the very least, you know what your break even is. Can you talk a little bit about break even and what that actually means?
Break even is at what point do you earn zero income on your revenue? And that zero income can be based on a dollar figure or the number of units. So in a manufacturing company, you probably want to know the number of units. And anybody else is probably how many dollar sales do you need to cover your fixed assets?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you're not making any money yet. It's just what you have to make to cover your cost of doing the business, basically. Right. You know what I mean? And so we are striving for a profit, which means you've covered your costs and now you still have money left in your bank, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's what we want to do, is work towards making a profit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, if you don't mind.
Right.
So like you said, you've been doing accounting and managing accounting for years, but you started your business in 2019.
Right.
So what was one of the biggest challenges for you when you decided to start Accountancy Tamer?
There were quite a few big challenges. I thought people would come rushing to my door.
Yes, if you build it, they will come.
But they didn't. Then I go on to all the social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, website. Then you get the people who sit on the fence, and then they finally get off the fence, and then they come in and say, yeah, we want to do your services. And then for some inexplicable reason, they disappear.
So they say yes, but they never actually...
Nothing ever happens.
Nothing happens.
Yeah, and this happens quite a lot. So I think that's just fate, and that's just the way it's meant to be, because when the other people come, and some people want to come, but they don't tell me that. So I actually went to talk to somebody that I knew from Ignite, and then suddenly out of the blue she says, yes, I want to use your services. And I'm thinking, well, if I hadn't asked you, then may not have happened.
That's a whole different thing, right? It's a whole different thing, because when you're working with someone, or when you're working for someone, I should say, specifically what your job is, what you have to do. You go in at 9, you make time, you do what you're supposed to do, and then you leave at 5. Whereas when you're running your own business, you have to go get the business. So you can't wait, right? You have to go out and get. So how is that? Like I imagine
I can do it, but I'm inconsistent. I'm quite a jovial person. I've got a sense of humour. I'll spend days when I just sit and do nothing, and then watch out. I'll be knocking at your door. Well, not actually knocking on their door, but knocking on the door with social media.
That's funny. You're like, one day you just wake up and you're like, okay, today's the day I'm going to go out and get some business. Yeah.
And I did a poll with one of them, and I said, which one's bothering you the most? And the third poll item was having an accountant bother you asking for services every 3 months.
Yeah.
Well, she hasn't answered yet. She's one of these people that doesn't open her phone very much.
Right.
So I don't know.
So how do you get your business primarily?
Different ways.
Yeah.
Ignite are quite significant because I've offered my services there.
Okay.
Free because it's part of development.
Okay.
And I've just talked them into saying, right, each of us volunteers are going to choose somebody and groom them.
Yes.
Whereas before they had to come to us, and that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then I used to pick on the most proactive member of Ignite, and then she produced a client right out of the blue. I was expecting to just help them on a voluntary basis, and this was a real client.
Okay.
So it's literally just a matter of juggling all these things.
It's true.
There's a website, there's a Canva free meeting link, because I do the free meeting, but everybody's too intimidated to do a free meeting.
Really?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. What do you mean?
Actually, not everybody. I've had about 4 people out of maybe 20.
So, so you're inviting the members in Ignite to do the free meeting?
No,
or is it for the public?
It's for the public.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're saying they're intimidated. What makes you think they're intimidated?
There is one lady who told me that she thought that they were intimidated because they didn't know which questions to ask, and I thought that's excellent.
Okay.
So maybe I do keep up with my polling and keep up with the concepts and keep up with doing it that way.
Yeah.
Because the person who came to me at Christmas there was no hesitation.
Right.
Suddenly, Canva meeting was so and so, and I knew who it was.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting because to me, I'm trying to figure out, or I wonder, you've given some thought about how, because I'm thinking a free meeting, this is like free advice, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that? And how much time do you allocate for that?
45 minutes.
45-minute free meeting?
Yeah. Should be good, wouldn't it?
What?
Yeah.
And you're not seeing people. So how are you telling people that this exists? That's what I want to know, because I feel like there's huge opportunity there. And
in the call to action of my social media.
Yeah. Okay.
On my website.
Okay. No, we have to do more. Maybe we need to tell people, Giles, because I think that is that's great. Who does that? Gives 45 minutes of their time, and this is what in the meeting, what is happening? You're assessing people, or
just assessing what their needs are.
Okay.
And usually by the time they call the meeting, the ones that do get into the meeting have already decided they want my services.
Okay.
So that's quite easy. It's just getting them to the door.
And that's the hard part sometimes, and I think especially when you're starting a business, from working for someone 9 to 5 and now having to go get the business,
right? You
have to be creative around how to do that. And usually, accountants and creativity are like, they're two separate kind of things. And so, do you find that is an issue? Because I'm hearing you talk about your social media and your LinkedIn. I'm like, look at Giles, you got all of this stuff going.
Yeah, I'm reaching certain segments of the audience.
Right.
There's a quite well-known person who kept liking my posts on Instagram, and she's an unqualified accountant, and I work together with her sometimes.
Okay.
And we just found each other that way.
Okay.
Then I found another unqualified accountant who ended up going to work for the gas station. So suddenly her business is just full.
Right.
And she's got one client at the gas station.
Right.
But I do have a listing on BDC.
Yes,
I am one of the people.
Yes.
But I got only one query from a guy who wanted to meet me on the hero's holiday.
Yes.
And he said, what will I learn? And I said, well, it depends what you don't know.
Right.
And we didn't really hit it off, so that never materialized.
Oh, no. So it's almost like, you it's trial and error. That's the one thing. You just have to keep grinding and keep letting people know that you're out there and that you're available.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing that I think that can be useful is when we do have our QuickBooks courses and, we have our accelerator program, and we always are looking for guest experts. I don't know if you've participated in that, the enterprise.
No, I put my name forward, but maybe you had enough people or something.
Okay. Well, I know that that's something that I think would be great, because these are people in this growth course who are looking for ways to grow their business. And one of the first things we do is we do look at the finances, right?
Yeah.
You have to, right?
Yeah.
Because you're using that as a way to forecast. And invariably, when we run that course, there are people who don't have financial statements. And these are businesses that have been in existence for at least 3 years, but some, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to me that is even a thing.
Well, if you add another ingredient to that they're smugly doing their financial statements and they're making a complete mess of it. One of my unqualified accountants that I work with gave me this account from her client. He was merrily doing all this stuff that didn't exist.
Yeah.
And I said, well, where's this $30,000? Wasn't there.
So this is the client?
This is the client who's doing the work for the unqualified person.
Okay.
And, what's BDC going to think when you bring in the statements and you think they've got 30 grand and they haven't?
They don't have
Especially if they see my name on the account. So I'm fastidious. I'm very thorough.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good quality to have, and that's something I think that you have to let people know, right?
Yeah.
This is something you because that's one thing I think not everybody should be an accountant, because you have to be thorough. You have to know, where is this money? Where did it go? How did it end up? And that sort of thing. And some people, like you said, will fudge it, right? It's like...
It's the dangerous people who've got a voice in their head saying they've got to be good at everything.
Right.
And they're good at nothing.
Right.
So just drop your accounts.
And let somebody else do it, who knows how to do it and who enjoys doing it.
I'm not going to take all your earnings for life. I'm not going to, I'm charge something, but it's not a lot, and I often charge monthly.
Right.
Because that makes it easier for people.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get people on contract. So can you talk a little bit about your business model and what works for you and maybe what separates? So you said monthly.
Yes. Yeah, monthly accounts is something I'm good at, and if they are 2 years behind, then obviously they're going to give me time to catch up.
Yeah.
There was a very keen lady at Ignite who was in her late 40s, wanted to save her money, and I could not believe the length of her bank statements. But we're working on them to get them down, and we're 4 months behind now. And I'm saying just pay yourself out of when you figure out how much money you've made, pay yourself and put your private stuff somewhere else, so I've got less bank accounts to work on.
Right.
And we're going to have something good going, because she's made a start in saving money.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of making sure it's realistic.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that you talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, and I spend a lot of time explaining things to people.
Okay. Well, that's good, and I think not a lot of people would do that. They're like, look, you pay me to do your books, this is what I'm going to do. And then I think at the end of the day, the entrepreneur, they're not any better off, right? So there's no further understanding of what's required, and so maybe you go back into those bad habits, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you're saying you're willing to take the time to help people establish good habits, that's a great thing.
Yeah, and many of them will just turn around at the end of getting the good habits and saying, I don't really like doing this.
Can you do it?
You don't have to.
Yeah. It's like, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for.
Because there's so many small businesses and there's so many things they're
involved with. A lot of small businesses. Yeah. That need help.
Yeah.
So you keep saying that you work with unqualified accountants. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that means? Because when I hear unqualified, I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm not going to get this person to do my books. But what do you mean when you say that?
Well, an unqualified accountant is someone who hasn't got a certification with a accounting board.
Right.
And we had about 6 in Bermuda. Now we just got the CPA Bermuda. And it tells everybody that you can do work.
Right.
And that you're proficient. Mm-hmm. And you're also accountable, because if you do the work wrong, go to the institute and they give you a disciplinary action. Mm-hmm. But having said that, some of the qualified accountants are quite keen. One of them's learnt a lot off me, and she says that without me she wouldn't be here. But I wish she'd just stop putting off taking her exams.
So basically an unqualified accountant has the skill set.
They might have the skill set,
but they just don't have the designation.
They don't have the designation.
Okay.
They haven't sat an exam. Bermuda's a humid place, and loads of families, and there's loads of stuff to do, and it's very difficult to find the time. But it honestly is not as difficult to get qualified as people think it is.
Yeah.
And I will go to Berkeley Institute, and I will go to Cedar Bridge, I will tell them all this. I don't know if there's a lot of people now who should be getting qualified but aren't. Mm-hmm. Or whether we now got gurus who just get qualified now.
I don't know. I don't think so. And I don't want to take anything away from it, because it is difficult. Because to get your CPA, you have to take multiple tests, right?
Yeah. But it's not difficult.
Listen, coming from you, the accountant guru.
Yeah. Well, of course I'm going to say it's not difficult because I passed it. But I sat on the ferry. I went right round the ferry, all round the Great Sand, looking at my notes, because I had to do case studies.
Yeah.
And I had to say, right, what's going to come up in these case studies? And I learnt all the things that could come up in the case studies.
You know what you're saying to me means that you are the best person for the job. And so for those of you who are starting a business and looking for someone, Giles, Accountancy Tamer, is your guy, because he said it's easy. And I've talked to other people who may have a difference of opinion. So you know what you're doing.
Right.
And what's the best way for people to contact you if they're interested in hiring you? Okay.
Telephone number 703-5958. WhatsApp. Look at my website, www.accountancytaming.com.
Okay.
Yeah, just get in touch with me. Just give me a call, and www.calendly.com/accountancytamer.
Okay.
Do I have a business card? Having said all that, I'll put the business card on the camera and flash it at the telephone.
Okay.
Oh, you're joking. I do not. I keep giving them away and forgetting.
Well, that's good. That's what they're for, right?
That's what they're for. But I'm supposed to have. Okay.
So Accountancy Taming
is the website.
.com.
Yeah.
And then your telephone number, which is also your WhatsApp number, is
703-5958.
Okay. And then you have your Instagram or Facebook, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Okay.
All three of those.
And they're Accountancy Taming or Tamer?
They're Tamer.
A Tamer.
It's just the website that's
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't get the.
Yeah.
Somebody else had it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Giles, look, it's been great minding our business today. Hopefully those who see this will understand that this is your passion. It seems to me that you are excellent at it, and that you are willing and able to give affordable pricing for these services.
Yes.
Because you don't have a lot of overhead. And so for anyone looking or seeking support with accounting, I would say start here. 45-minute free session.
Exactly.
Why not, right?
Exactly.
And that's found on your website, right?
Yeah, and even the youngsters, the 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds who never talked to an accountant before.
Yeah.
I'll talk to them.
Yeah, and we're going to get you involved in some of our programming. Our Summer Student Entrepreneurship Program is coming up, and so you did mention that you would be willing to mentor, so we thank you for that.
Yeah.
But thank you again for coming on the show.
Okay,
and
thank you.
Remember, if you don't mind your business, who will?
Exactly.
Thanks for tuning in to Mind Your Business with me, your host, Jamillah Lodge. Tune in next week, Thursday at 4 p.m. because if you don't mind your business, who will? Mind Your Business is brought to you by BEDC. Bermuda Business starts here.